I'm a little late to the party, but today I play Pokémon Violet. Pokémon's newest, greatest games with zero bugs and issues whatsoever. My first playthrough, I decided to do a Nuzlocke, a Pokémon challenge where you can only catch one Pokémon per area, and if a Pokémon dies in battle, they die permanently. I also only caught new Pokémon from the Paldea Region to make this challenge more interesting for me, as I've never played the games before. For you Pokémon fans, the rest of the rules of the Nuzlocke are on the screen now. If you'd like to see more content like this, let me know. Enjoy. To start things off, I chose Fuecoco, the Fire-type Pokémon. And I mean, how couldn't I? Just look at the little guy. I decided to name him Sriracha. Next, it was time for the rival battle against Nemona, which I easily won using a few embers on her grass-type Sprigatito. From there, I headed over to Poco Path and found this big behemoth Lechonk, which I quickly added to my party as our first captured Pokemon. For the hog Pokemon Lechonk, I thought the name Ruben was fitting. With our new partner Ruben, I headed over to South Province 1. That's when I stumbled upon this walking turd known as Paldean Wooper, and I knew right away that he needed to be our third Pokemon in the party. Going off his appearance, I named him Plooper, the Wooper. I then headed over to the Pokemon gas station to refuel my Pokemon, and got chased around by a crazy flamingo in the nearby area.
I'm a bird.
Once I arrived at Mesagoza, I was challenged by Nemona again. Since she didn't learn her lesson the first time, I quickly defeated her Sprigatito with an Ember. Then she sent out Pommy, the electric type, which gave me a big scare and almost knocked out Sriracha, so I swapped into Plooper and took it out with a ground type move. Before taking on the first gym, I wanted to catch one more Pokemon, and I had a very specific one in mind. That Pokemon was none other than Tinkatink, the Pokemon that evolves into Tinkaton, which swings a 220-pound hammer and likes to kill Corviknights, the giant metal bird, for fun. Needless to say, I caught Tinkatink and added it to my party. And of course, I named it Poppy, after a similar character with a giant hammer. And then I got my live reaction of Tinkatink immediately going around and murdering everything. Get him, Tinkatink! The Hoppip was running for its life. She's on a killing spree. Just everything in the area is getting clubbed in the head. Then it was time for my first gym test. I had to push an olive at 10 FPS to a basket. I knew this would be my hardest challenge yet, and I beat it. Next, I challenged Katie, the bug-type gym leader. I initially led with Ruben, my Lechonk, which was not the right Pokemon for the job, but after a quick switch into Sriracha and terrestrializing, it was an easy sweep using fire-type moves to take down her entire team, including her Teddiursa, which she also made into a bug-type. After the battle was over, surprise surprise, Sriracha evolved into this beautiful creature, and I love him. Just like that, I had gotten my first gym badge, and we were well on our way to becoming the champion. Next, I headed over to South Area 3 and found Knockley? However you say it, the Minecraft Pokemon, and I added him as my fourth party member. And of course, I named him Steve. From there, I tried to head into South Area 5, but got lost and jumped into the river. Until I turned around and saw the bridge. That's when I headed over to the beach and found the friendly dolphin Pokemon, Finizen. I knew I needed it to be my fifth party member, but it was level 21, so I couldn't use it for the next gym. With a quick Ultra Ball, I captured it and named it Rizazen. Just look at that sly smile. On my way over to the next gym, I found a 2-year-old in the desert. Where are your parents? My second gym challenge was to go and find 10 Sunflora, which was actually awful. These things ran around at 2 FPS. Me and the boys on our way to photosynthesize? After beating the challenge, it was time to take on the second gym leader, Brassius. Being a grass-type gym leader, it took me no time at all to defeat his team with Sriracha. Although to be fair, his Sudowoodo did hit me pretty hard with a rock throw. With that, I had gotten my second gym badge. After the battle, Steve evolved into a mutated Minecraft sheep? After exploring the next area for a while, I came to the top of a tower and found a chest, which I guess was actually a Pokemon, which was Gimmighoul. Still a lot nicer than running into a Mimic in Dark Souls, I gotta say. Gimmighoul became the newest addition to our team, and I named him Gimme-Gold. There was one more party member that I knew I wanted no matter what for this Nuzlocke run, and that was Ceruledge. So I headed over to a west area where he's guaranteed to spawn after a little bit of research, and I caught a Charcadet. Since Ceruledge has that blue flame in its eye, I decided to name him Sans. Now that the level cap was raised, I used Rizazen to take on Cloth, the Stone Titan Pokemon. After falling down and getting smacked in the face by Cloth, it only took a few water-type moves to bring down the Titan Crab. Shortly after, while power leveling in the desert, Plooper evolved into a Clodsire, which is honestly one of my favorite Pokemon from this entire generation. Look at those lifeless eyes. Kinda like he's saying, I'll kill you. That's when I took on the Team Star Fire base, which honestly should have been super easy, considering I had a water type, a rock type, and a ground type, but for some reason, her Pokemon were super tanky. But luckily, Steve came in clutch and I just spammed Recover and Rock Throw over and over and over, until finally, after probably 10 minutes of battling, I was able to defeat the first Team Star leader. Outside of the third city, I found a floating light bulb named Tadbulb and decided to catch it as my next Pokemon, because we needed some electric type coverage. Knowing that Tadbulb evolved into Bellibolt, I named him Toad. After that, I was challenged by Nemona yet again, and she still hasn't learned what a type matchup is, so I deleted her entire team. For the third gym challenge, I got put onto a live stream, my worst nightmare, and I had to find the headmaster, which was actually hilarious because whenever I looked at him, I couldn't click on him. I can see him, he's right there, please! After resetting my controller on my Switch, I was actually able to click on him and beat the gym test. And during one of the trainer battles, my Tinkatink evolved into Tinkatuff, the toughest of them all. It was finally time to take on the VTuber, the electric type gym leader Iono. And it wasn't too bad. We had Plooper the ground type and Steve the rock type, so we pretty quickly just swept through her team. Her Miss Maggie's did cause me some trouble with its Confuse Ray, but Steve and Plooper clutched up, and we got our third gym badge. Moving right along, our Reuben evolved into an absolutely yassified Oinkologne, or Oinkalone if you want to be proper. And over in the mines, we found the floating engine Varoom, which at first I thought was a vacuum cleaner. Looking back now, that's kind of stupid, but we caught it and added it into the box. Then I realized I had a Thunderstone and evolved Tadbulb into Bellibolt, which is honestly another one of my favorite Pokemon. It looks like a gumdrop. I love the fat, chonky boys so much. In the desert, on my way to the fourth gym, I found a dung beetle Pokemon, Reller, which I convinced myself I would evolve, and after looking at what I had to do, I never did. Just me and my poop ball walking through the desert. In the next city, I had to take on the fourth gym versus leader Kofu. And to be able to challenge him, I had to first go onto an episode of Pawn Stars and bid for the Wakame Seaweed. Not something you usually do in a Pokemon game. Kofu was a water-type gym leader who is definitely related to Crasher Wake somehow. So I led with Bellibolt, the electric type, and began taking out his team. Bellibolt was able to defeat his Veluza and Wug trio, but Bellibolt took quite a beating, so I had to switch. I decided to switch into Clodsire because I knew that with the water absorb ability, Clodsire would be able to absorb all of the Crabominable's attack. And after a yawn and a few poison jabs, the fourth gym badge was ours. I'm just gonna let the audio of this next Nuzlocke encounter play out. I see a pink thing over there and I need it. It's jumping. My friend. Oh my god, it's level 51? Quick ball. That'll work, right? Get in the ball, get in the ball, get in the ball. Don't break out, please. I can't afford this. I'm not even allowed to use that yet. And that's the story of how I caught my Tatsugiri, which I named Dwayne. And if you're wondering why his name is Dwayne, look at this. I wanted to unlock some more abilities for Miraidon, so I headed over to the next Titan, which was Bombardier, and got hit by a rock. Luckily, I had Bellybolt, who was easily able to two-shot the Titan Pokemon. Then, it ate a weed, powered up, and we killed it again. Also, can I just say that Arven's story is like super sad. Like my boss Div, he's just an old doggy, he's hurt, and we gotta heal him. And I was gonna do anything it took to make that happen. Continuing on, I headed to Medali City for the 5th gym challenge, but right outside of the city I found Tandemaus. And honestly, I knew right away that I needed to catch this thing. I mean, Mousehold, Population Bomb, I've seen it, I wanted to abuse it, I was gonna do it. So we added Tandemaus to the team and named it Jerry. After a little more power leveling, it was time to fight Larry, the Giga Chad, the man. When Larry walks into the room, I step aside and clear the way. Larry is best girl, he's better than Nimona, better than your mom. Larry is king. And I was about to beat him in a gym battle. Now Larry was by far the toughest gym I fought in this entire playthrough. He almost defeated my entire team. I sent out Plooper against his Komala, and it almost got one shot. So I swapped into Steve, used a Salt Cure, a Rock Slide, and then recovered until his Komala went down. Larry's next Pokemon was Dunsparce, and I for some reason thought it was a rock type or a ground type. I put out Rizazen, I thought water would be good. That was a mistake. Rizazen died, and we had the first knockout of our Nuzlocke playthrough. I'd like a moment of silence from everybody for Rizazen's death. Anyways, next I sent out Jerry and charmed the Dunsparce twice, which probably saved the rest of my team from dying, to be honest. But I had to swap out Jerry because he almost died himself. Next it was back to trusty old Steve. Good old Steve Salt Cure. Nothing beats it. I mean, literally nothing beats it, because I just recovered until the Dunsparce died. Last up was Larry's Staraptor, which was absolutely terrifying. It did so much damage, but thankfully we had damage over time, an electric type and a rock type, and I just swapped around Pokemon until Staraptor finally went down, and I got my 5th gym badge of the challenge. Since our Finizen died, it was time to permanently box him and re-add Sriracha into the party. Right after that, I headed over to Casaroya Lake and started power leveling with Toad. And then Steve evolved from a Minecraft sheep into a golem. It was here that Poppy would also evolve into Tinkaton and finally get her giant hammer. It was also here at the lake where I caught the new amazing dragon type Pokemon Dondozo. I wouldn't be able to use it in battle yet due to the level cap, but I knew from the get-go it was a Pokemon I would want on my final team. I mean, he's just a bigger and better Whiscash. Plus, he serves up sushi. I decided to name Dondozo Laboon, even though he's not a whale. I just really like Laboon. Once I was done at the lake, it was time to head into the mountains. And since it's a snow area in Pokemon, what better excuse than to play my favorite theme? Route 216, baby! I transcend every time I hear it. But in the mountains, there was only one thing I wanted, and that was Braxcalibur. Or Frigibax for now, the little guy. With him, my team was finally complete, and since Braxcalibur looks like Godzilla, I named him Gojira. With a little more leveling, Sriracha finally evolved into his final form, Skeledirge, which I think looks good, but also kinda looks like a clown with that hair. My team was finally starting to look champion ready, And after one level, Frigibax evolved into Arctibax. While we were on an evolving spree, I wanted to evolve Sands into Ceruledge as well. I didn't know if there was an easy way to get to Alfornata, so I just backwards long jumped my way up. Then I murdered a bunch of teapots until I could get the malicious armor. With that, we had Ceruledge, aka Mega Man. With my team stronger than ever, I headed on to the 6th gym battle. And I had to go through a couple of double battles hosted by none other than Moist Critical himself. The 6th gym leader was Rhyme, the ghost type gym leader, which also had the gimmick of being a double battle. At first I led with Steve and Skellydirge, which were not the Pokemon I wanted on the field, so I swapped over to Gojira and Jerry, taking advantage of Normal's immunity to ghost type. Now Jerry had Beat Up, which I used to take out the Banette. And then Rhyme sent out Houndstone, which I had heard is a monster of a Pokemon, so I took that out next immediately, leaving Mimikyu alone for now. Now at this point, Rhyme was down to her last 2 Pokemon, Mimikyu and Toxtricity. And Jerry was pretty low health, so I swapped out into Steve, because he's a tank. I mean, look at him. The only problem was, Rhyme terrestrialized her Toxtricity into a ghost type, and it used Hex on Steve with the attack bonus, bringing him down from 86 health all the way to 0. One of my favorite Pokemon on the team, our Minecraft man, had fallen, and Gojira immediately got revenge for him, taking out the Toxtricity with a bite. Rest in peace, Steve. You will be missed. In a final act of revenge, I had Poppy drop a 200-pound hammer on Mimikyu, and the battle was over. At this point, I was done messing around. I went to go defeat Iron Treads in the desert and unlock Flying for Miraidon. Then, I went around and collected all of the Gimme Gold coins and got Golden Go just because I could. I never even ended up using him. He was a backup plan. Before I could take on the 7th gym, I was challenged yet again by my rival Nemona. And I just need to complain for a second. Why does the little weed cat, Sprigatito, get a move called Flower Trick that not only is a stab type move with 70 power, not only never misses, but always lands a crit? That is so much guaranteed damage. Needless to say, I deleted it with Poppy. Hammer superiority for the win. For the 7th gym challenge, we had to work out with Dendra, and let me just say, whew, enough said. I think Dendra would have made a better gym leader, to be honest. I don't like Tulip, and I don't like psychic types. I take that last part back. Farigiraf is amazing. Farigiraf. So with Tulip, my entire team almost got wiped. It was a battle of attrition. Thankfully, Toad came in clutch at the end. It was actually down to the wire. Toad had 23 HP, was gonna be outsped, but Toad had Sucker Punch, and Sucker Punch goes first if the opponent attacks, which was just enough damage for us to bring down Tulip's last Pokemon, nabbing us the 7th gym badge. My 8th and final gym challenge was by far my favorite. It kind of felt like a Mario Party minigame. I just had to slide down a ski hill on Miraidon. I couldn't control the damn thing. I just went, and it was glorious. The final gym leader was Grusha, the ice type gym leader, which was fairly easy for me since I had a fire type in my team. I led with Sands, set up a substitute, and then used Sword Dance so I could sweep Grusha's team. That allowed me to sweep Frostmoth, Beartick, and Sedatan? The Marshmallow Whale. But Sand was pretty low health, and I was afraid that Grusha's Altaria might outspeed, so, as was tradition for the last few gyms, I swapped into Poppy and bonked it. Finally, we had obtained all 8 gym badges, and all that was left was to take on the Elite Four. At this point, it was time for me to do some serious training, and, during the process, Arctibax evolved into Baxcalibur. And then I EV trained. And when I say I EV trained, I mean I maxed attack and speed on all of my attackers and health and defense on my wall, Dondozo, who wanted to make a surprise appearance in the entrance exam for the Elite Four. What are you doing, Dondozo? During the Elite Four entrance exam, I preached for Larry. Rika asked me what the hardest gym was. It was Larry. Little did I know that I would be facing him again. Since I had to look at the level cap anyways, and I absolutely did not want to have to re-record this Nuzlocke for YouTube purposes, I looked up what the Elite Four's Pokemon were. And Rika is a ground type user. Since I had been training up my team, I wanted to try out Mousehold with Population Bomb and Wide Lens. If you don't know what that means, look at this clip.
Fight back! Fight back! Fight back!
I proceeded to do this to Rika's Camerupt, Donphan, Dugtrio, and Clodsire, wiping out her entire team with a little family of mice.
Victory Screech!
Rika was not happy after that one. Next up was Poppy, surprisingly enough, a Steel-type Elite Four member, exactly the same as Poppy, my Steel-type Dinkaton. And Poppy was super easy. I mean, Ceruledge chewed through her team. A Sword Dance and a Bitter Blade was just too much for the Steel types. I'll let you see how Sans handles things. With Poppy out of the way, it was time for the third Elite Four member. That's right, Larry was back, and this time he had a flying type team, so I led with Toad. Of course, I knew that Larry would be harder than the champion, so I used a Volt Switch on Toad to get some free damage off, then went into Sans to take out his Tropius with a fire type move. At that point, I swapped back into Toad, who took a big hit from close combat on Staraptor, which, yeah, obviously, birds no fighting type moves. But we were able to defeat it with a Thunderbolt, and Larry sent out Altaria. Since Toad was low health, I knew I would need to switch. I went into Dondozo, Laboon, and used Order Up, a Dragon type move, to take out his Altaria. Next up was Oricorio, and the electric type version of it, so I swapped into Poppy, used a Fake Out, a Gigaton Hammer, and a Play Rough to bring it down. Larry's last Pokemon was Flamigo, which used close combat and caught me entirely off guard. I thought my Ghost type would be okay against it since it's a fighting move. Little did I know, Flamigo has the ability Scrappy, making it so that fighting type moves can hit Ghost type Pokemon. Seeing I was low on options, I tried to swap into Laboon to take a hit, but Brave Bird did way more damage than I thought it would. My only option was to try and switch into Jerry and pray that he could take a hit, and he could. Jerry was our first party member to fall during the Elite Four challenge. Now that I had move priority though, I could switch into Tinkaton, use a Fake Out for some free damage, and finish off the Flamigo with a Gigaton Hammer. With Jerry in the box, and Larry defeated, the last Elite Four member was Hassel, the Dragon type user. Now I had a plan for Hassel, and that plan rhymed with Excalibur. It was Braxcalibur. But first I wanted to take out his Noivern, and I used Poppy to do that, which almost cost me Poppy's life, by the way. Once Hassel sent out Dragalge, I sent in Gojira, and the Glaive Rush sweep began. And now remember, this is an EV trained speed and attack Baxcalibur. I knew that Hassel had his own Baxcalibur, and I was terrified that it would still outspeed me. But luckily, it didn't, and my Baxcalibur sweeped his entire team, taking us to the final champion. The final champion was Geeta, and 3 weeks later while editing this, I still think she looks like a Splatoon character. Regardless, Geeta led with Espatha, and I led with Poppy to set up a Stealth Rock and defeat her first Pokemon with an onslaught of Fairy and Steel-type moves. Geeta's next Pokemon was Avalugg, and I had a very strong feeling from playing Pokemon for 15 years that this thing was going to use Earthquake. And I was right, so I sent in Gojira and used a Glaive Rush to defeat it. Excalibur only had 26 health at this point, but I used an Icicle Crash anyways and outsped the Go-Goat, defeating it in one shot. And as Geeta said, that was the correct decision. Her next Pokemon was Veluza, which I also one-shot with a Crunch, Gojira taking his third victim of the battle. King Gambit was the next Pokemon up, and that Pokemon was terrifying. I knew I'd need to swap into Sands, but he probably couldn't take a hit, so I swapped into Dwayne, and he didn't make it out. With Sands, I was having an inner monologue. Is this Bitterblade gonna one-shot? Is it not gonna one-shot? What do I do? It didn't one-shot, and Sands was promptly murdered in cold blood. I switched into Poppy and was really surprised to see that I outsped with Gigaton Hammer. That was honestly a gamble, but it worked out in the end. I guess you could say it was the Poppy Gambit. I'll leave now. Glamora was Geeta's final Pokemon, and it set up Toxic Debris with its passive, and then erupted Mount Vesuvius on Poppy, knocking out my third Pokemon of the battle. So I swapped into Laboon. Geeta hit Laboon with one Terra Blast, a final attempt to win before an Aqua Tail finished the job, and I would become the newest champion trainer of the Paldea region. I felt victorious, but my victory was short-lived when I soon found out that Nemona was also a champion, and I needed to fight her. Since this was a blind playthrough, I didn't really know about Nemona or Turo, so I just kinda brought back my favorite Pokemon for one final battle to send things off in this Nuzlocke run. And so we had reached the rival battle, ending things off the way they started. Nemona led with the Lycanroc, and I sent out Jerry. You already knew what I was trying to do. But I switched over to Tinkaton because Nemona set up a Stealth Rock, and I wanted a Stealth Rock. I was the petty type. And then I smacked Lycanroc into next week with a hammer. Orthoworm, or as I like to call it, the Hungry Caterpillar, got the Sands treatment, and a Bitterblade ended his existence. Next up was Goodra, and you know what we do to Dragon-type Pokemon. We send out Laboon and hit him with an order up. Have some sushi on the house. Pawmot was next, and even though I was able to hit it with a Fake Out on Poppy, it outsped me in the next turn, and Poppy did end up fainting. What's the only logical solution to beating a fighting type? Obviously, you send out your normal type. Population Bomb. Population Bomb. Population Bomb. Population Bomb. You get the idea. My archenemy, the Dunsparce, came out next, which gave me PTSD from back to when I fought Larry, and I promptly Population Bombed it. I had to do it twice though, because the Dunsparce does not mess around. Nemona's final Pokemon, of course, was Meowscarada. Did I mention that I hate Flower Trick? I also threw out Sands here and kind of forgot about the Stealth Rock, and he just died immediately. If there's one thing that never fails though, it's Baxcalibur Glaive Rush. Nothing beats a good old Baxcalibur Glaive Rush. And that's how I beat Nemona. Only losing, like 4 party members. Let's not worry about it. And that is my Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Nuzlocke. I do hope you all enjoyed. If you made it this far, consider subscribing, leaving a like, and commenting down below if you want to see more Pokemon content and possibly even some live streams in the near future. Other than that, I hope to see you all again soon. Peace.